The Lean Startup by Eric Ries, Part 2, Steer, Chapter 5, Leap. In 2004, three college sophomores arrived in Silicon Valley with their fledgling college social network. It was live on a handful of college campuses. It was not the market leading social network or even the first college social network. Other companies had launched sooner and with more features. With 150,000 registered users, it made very little revenue. Yet that summer, they raised their $500,000 in venture capital. Less than a year later, they raised an additional $12.7 million. Of course, by now you've guessed that these three college sophomores were Mark Zuckerberg, Dustin Moskowitz, and Chris Hughes of Facebook. Their story is now world famous. Many things about it are remarkable, but I'd like to focus on only one: how Facebook was able to raise so much money when its actual usage was so small. By all accounts, what impressed investors the most were two facts about Facebook's early growth. The first fact was that the raw amount of time Facebook's active users spent on the site. More than half of the users came back to the site every single day. This is an example of how a company can validate its value hypothesis that customers find the product valuable. The second impressive thing about Facebook's early traction was the rate at which it had taken over its first college campuses. The rate of growth was staggering. Facebook launched on February 4th, 2004, and by the end of that month, almost three quarters of Harvard's undergraduates were using it without a dollar of advertising, dollar of marketing, or advertising having spent. In other words, Facebook also had validated its growth hypothesis. These two hypotheses represent two of the most important leap of faith questions any new startup faces. At the time, I heard many people criticize Facebook's early investors, claiming that Facebook had no business model and only modest revenues relative to the valuation offered by its investors. They saw in Facebook a return to the excess of the dot-com era when companies with a little revenue raised massive amount of cash to pursue a strategy of attracting eyeballs and getting big fast. Many dot-com era startups plan to make money later by selling the eyeballs they had bought to other advertisers. In truth, those dot-com failures were little more than middlemen effectively paying money to acquire customers' attention and then planning to resell it to others. Facebook was different because it employed a different engine of growth. It paid nothing for customer acquisition, and its high engagement meant that it was accumulating massive amounts of customer attention every day. There was never any question that attention would be valuable to advertisers. The only question was how much they would pay. Many entrepreneurs were attempting to build the next Facebook. Yet, when they try to apply the lessons of Facebook and other famous startup success stories, they quickly get confused. Is the lesson of Facebook that startups should not charge customers money in the early days? Or is it that startups should never spend money on marketing? These questions cannot be answered in the abstract. There are an almost infinite number of counterexamples for any technique. Instead, as we saw in part one, startups need to conduct experiments that help determine what techniques will work in their unique circumstances. For startups, the role of strategy is to help figure out the right questions to ask. Strategy is based on assumptions. Every business plan begins with a set of assumptions. It lays out a strategy that takes those assumptions as a given and proceeds to show how to achieve the company's vision. Because our assumptions haven't been proven to be true and in fact are often erroneous, the goal of a startup's early efforts, should be to test them as quickly as possible. What traditional business strategy excels at is helping managers identify clearly what assumptions are being made in a particular business. The first challenge for an entrepreneur is to build an organization that can test these assumptions systematically. The second challenge, as is all entrepreneurial situations, is to perform that rigorous testing without losing sight of the company's overall vision. Many assumptions in a typical business plan are unexceptional. These are well-established facts drawn from past industry experience or straightforward deductions. In Facebook's case, it is clear that advertisers would pay for customers' attention. Hidden among these mundane details are a handful of assumptions that require more courage to state in the present tense with a straight face. We assume that customers have a significant desire to use a product like ours, or we assume that supermarkets will carry our product. Acting as if these assumptions are true is a classic entrepreneur superpower. They are called leap of faith precisely because the success of the entire venture rests on them. If they are true, tremendous opportunity awaits. If they are false, the startup risks total failure. Most leap of faith take the form of an argument by analogy. For example, one business plan I remember argues as follows. Just as the development of progressive image loading allowed the widespread use of the World Wide Web over dial-up, so too our progressive rendering technology will allow our product to run on low-end personal computers. You probably have no idea what progressive image loading or rendering is, and it doesn't much matter. But you know the argument. Perhaps you've used it. Previous technology X was used to win market Y because of its attribute Z. We have a new technology X2 that will enable us to win market Y2 because of its attribute Z. The problem with analogies like this is that they obscure the true leap of faith. That is their goal, to make the business seem less risky. They are used to persuade investors, employees, or partners to sign on. Most entrepreneurs would cringe to see their leap of faith written away. The large number of people already wanted access to the World Wide Web. They knew what it was. They could afford it, but they could not get access to it because the time it took to load images was too long. When progressive image loading was introduced, it allowed people to get into World Wide Web and tell their friends about it. Thus, company X won over market Y. Similarly, there is already a large number of potential customers who want to access our product right now. They know they want it, they can afford it, but they cannot access it because the rendering is too slow. When we debut our product with progressive rendering technology, they will flock to our software and tell their friends and we will win market-wide too. There are several things to notice in this revised statement. First, it's important to identify the facts clearly. Is it really true that progressive image loading caused the adoption of World Wide Web, or was this just one factor among many? More importantly, is it really true that there are a large number of potential customers out there who want our solution right now? The earlier analogy was designed to convince stakeholders that a reasonable first step is to build a new startup technology and see if customers will use it. The restated approach would make clear that what is needed is to do something empirical is to do some empirical testing first. Empirical testing first. Let's make sure that there really are hungry customers out there eager to embrace our new technology. Thank you for listening to the Lean Startup. I will continue to read tomorrow.